Hi everyone, welcome. It's been a minute. Tonight we will be speaking to genealogist Jasmin Kateri about researching our Dominican history. Ancestry. So I'm going to give folks a little bit of time to join our live. Búsquense un lápiz papel, get your pen and notebook. We're going to be taking notes. We're going to be gathering some resources and some information about researching our Dominican ancestry. So, yeah, go get ready. Go get yourself, a drink. Go use the bathroom. You don't want to miss this conversation. Write down your questions. If you are viewing this conversation via your phone, at the bottom of your screen, there is a question mark icon. And you're going to be using that question mark icon to ask your questions. If you put the question in the comments, the question is going to get lost and I won't be able to answer it. You cannot use the question mark icon if you are on your desktop. So please do this via your phone if you want to ask a question. Again, para todos ustedes que son nuevos a nuestra conversación, les recomiendo ver esta conversación por su teléfono, y abajo de su pantalla van a ver un icono con el signo de interrogatorio, y ese icono es lo que van a usar para hacer sus preguntas. ¿Ok? Today we will be speaking to genealogist Jasmin Kateri regarding researching your Dominican history. So even if this hasn't crossed your mind, I hope that this conversation inspires you to do your research. There's so much information that we as second and third generations living in the U.S. don't know, because our parents don't share too much information. So we have to go out there and do the research. So Jasmin is going to be sharing her story. She's going to be sharing her process, and she will also be sharing resources. So, I'm excited for this. There you go for the newbies who didn't know this was happening today and bumped into this conversation. It was meant to be. It was meant to be. All right, everybody. Welcome. Our conversation starts at 7 p.m. Please start writing down your questions, okay? Use the icon at the bottom of your screen with the question mark to ask any questions you may have. And I'm also going to, leave some time for Jasmin to answer questions besides all the questions I have. So, write them down. See so many new faces. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. This is our conversation for tonight, researching your Dominican ancestry with genealogist Jasmin Kateri. So any questions that you guys have for Jasmin, please use the question mark icon at the bottom of the screen. Definitely, Empanada, this space is for you. And every time I am aware that people in our platform are, interested in a specific topic, if we're able to provide that conversation, then we do so. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. Again, if you have any questions, please use the question mark icon at the bottom of your screen. That icon is only visible when you are watching the conversation via your phone. If you're using a desktop to watch this live conversation, you will not be able to make any questions. I cannot read the questions in the comments section because it's distracting, and if other people are commenting, your question is going to get lost. We already have some people who submitted questions. So let's see. So waiting for Jasmine. All right, everyone. Good evening. Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. I love your hair. You're making
Thank
me miss
you.
you're making me miss mine, but I'm giving it a break.
That's good. We all need a break sometimes.
Jasmine, thank you for joining us tonight. This is such an interesting conversation. So many people have been asking for it and are looking forward to having this conversation. So I'm glad that you immediately accepted my invitation when I said, let's talk about this, because it's a hot topic among Dominican Americans, at least second and third generation, whose parents don't tell us anything, right? And we have to throw ourselves into this journey with minimal information.
That's true.
For those of you who are just joining us tonight, we are speaking with genealogist Jasmin Kateri. Am I pronouncing your last name correct?
That's my middle name. I don't go by my last name on social media. So you can call me Jasmin Kateri, Jasmin Kateri, however you want to spell me.
Jasmin Kateri, the Dominican way. And Jasmin is a genealogist. You're also a member of the Association of Professional Genealogists, and you specialize in Dominican genealogy, correct?
Correct. That's where I have most of my research experience.
Wonderful. So Jasmine, could you give us background about why you chose genealogy? What about that field?
That field kind of chose me in a way, because I took a lot of interest in researching my own Dominican ancestry for personal reasons surrounding my grandmother. And I noticed when I began researching that there wasn't a lot of information out there on like how to start your research and stuff like that. So that's why I chose it, because I want to help others research their own Dominican ancestry and help others with the things that I found.
Wonderful. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
I could see that happening. Could you tell us about your process, and how did you go about researching your family, especially being here in the US, right? Because I mean, I assume at some point you did travel to the DR, but as someone who resides in the United States, how did you go about doing your research? Ooh, are we frozen? Oh, there we go.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. So the last thing I heard you mention was, how did I start my process? I'm gonna say it started back in 2015 when my grandmother, on a very rare occasion, my aunt and I were sitting in her sala, and she just started telling me about her life in Dominican Republic. And I was just so fascinated by that, because she never talks about it, or she never talked about it, I should say. So right away, I began recording all that information on my phone, and I sent myself an email with the names of my great-grandparents. And that's when I began my research. But I didn't get anywhere, I couldn't find any information on them, and I kind of just left it at that.
Where were you looking? Were you looking on what resources were you using then to find information?
Back then, I was only looking on Ancestry.com. I wasn't aware of other websites during that time. It wasn't until a few years after her passing that I really got into wanting to know more about my Dominican roots and kind of preserve her memory and our family history. So that's when I learned about other websites like Familysearch.org. That is a website that I recommend to anybody starting out in their own family history research, because everything about that website is free. It is run by the Genealogical Society of Utah, and it's operated by the Church of Latter-day Saints. So it's a legitimate site that you can make your own accounts on and you can do your family research on.
So what I'm curious about is like, okay, I came here when, for example, I came here when I was 3 years old, but I have like my dad still lives in DR. My father's entire family lives in DR. So how is it that I use an American website to research people who don't even live in this country?
That's so funny. So Familysearch is actually considered a collaborative effort, and it's like a world's family tree. So what this Genealogical Society has done is they liberated and digitized records from all over the world. So you can find records from France, and they have a really impressive collection on Dominican Republic.
Wow.
So you'll find civil records from the early 1800s up until the late 1900s. And then you'll see that they have a Catholic Church records collection that dates back to the late 1500s. So, you know, there's a lot more records, Dominican records, available on that website. And again, like that's the one that I say is my go-to when you're just starting out researching your family history.
So what kind of records would you be finding there? Are you referring to like birth certificates and death certificates and, you know, what exactly will we be finding on these websites?
Right. You named the first two pillars of like your genealogy research, right? You have your birth, your marriage, and your death certificates. Those are like considered the pillars. It's important that when you're starting out your research that you sit down and talk with your elders so you can get that information. You're gonna wanna ask them for names of their parents and birth dates and whether or not they were married, because that's gonna affect the way you research later on, you know. For example, back then in the records, if the parents weren't married, you know, the child would have to take on their maternal last name instead of their paternal last name. So a lot of the times, even though, like, let's say your great-grandmother now legally has her paternal surname, well, you might find her under the Dominican records under her maternal last name, so.
Oh, then it gets complicated.
Yeah, and that's the problem that a lot of people run into, is identifying the father of a lot of these ancestors, because there are a lot of quote unquote illegitimate children back then.
Tons. Yeah. Tons. So when you're researching these people, do they also give you, you know, I guess, information on their parents' name and if they had siblings? Like, how far into the family tree does the website go?
Well, it really depends if the records exist. That's number one. You have to take into account the history of the location that you're researching. So we know that DR is prone to hurricanes. You know, there was plenty of wars that happened on the island. You know, destruction of records is something that has happened. So you might, there might not be any information available on one particular ancestor, but that doesn't mean that there isn't any available on the rest. The records will have information on the parents, like if it's a birth record or a marriage record, they both contain information on the parents. It'll sometimes give the parents' occupation, what they did for a living, and the godparents of that child as well. And a lot of the times you'll see that the people that are showing up to these places to get their records documented are not always the parents. It's usually the godparents. So if you ever hit a brick wall or you feel like you can't locate a specific ancestor, I always recommend looking up the people that are listed in the actual record, whether it's the godparents or the mother or the sibling of that person and their godparents. You know, it kind of all circles back somehow, some way.
Got it. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wonderful. What about for people, for example, like someone mentioned in the comments that we use nicknames a lot.
Oh,
like
yeah. That's why I say
raised,
talk to your elders, right?
You know,
because
like,
I called my grandmother one name my entire life, and that's not her real name. You
right,
know?
exactly what I was gonna say.
Yeah, make sure you're getting the actual name that is on these records, their actual legal name, not their nickname.
Yes,
That
wonderful.
is a good point to make.
that is very valid. So we gotta ask.
Yeah.
Because that might not be their real name and you've grown up calling them by these names your entire life. So
Yeah.
while you were doing this research, did you also accompany it with a DNA test?
I did do a DNA test very recently, maybe like 6-8 months ago. And yeah, I have a lot of genetic cousins. You know, when you do these DNA tests, I did mine specifically with Ancestry. I was shocked at the amount of genetic cousins that I had. And I had a bunch that were in Louisiana, which is quite interesting to me. So I'm wondering if my African ancestry kind of traces back to that point. So that's something that I'm currently researching at the moment.
Yeah, so that's interesting because in the 1800s, there were many African Americans who were sent to the DR. And Samana has a huge population of them. And they also speak English because they have passed on the language as well. So you have this population and you could very well be related to any of them.
Yeah, that's true. Some of them came from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Some of them came from the South. And a large percentage of them went to Samana. And then a portion went to Santo Domingo. So they are kind of spread out throughout the island, you know. And when you go through the records, you'll see that oh, this person is from South Carolina.
Does Ancestry.com work in a similar way as Familysearch, that it pulls from all over the world?
Yes, but here's the kicker: is that Familysearch is partnered with a lot of these websites like Ancestry. They're partners. So if you're looking up information on Ancestry, it's going to be the same as Familysearch. And when you see the actual record on Ancestry, you'll see that they pulled it from FamilySearch.org.
Oh, that's very interesting to know. Have you taken 23andMe?
I haven't. I plan to, though.
How far? I believe there's one that goes into medical and another one that goes into allergies. Like, how deep in the DNA did you go?
I didn't do that part. The medical part I didn't do. I did do one that told me that I had a high caffeine intake, and I was just like, that's not news to me. I know this. I love coffee.
I mean, you're Dominican.
Like, that's not news to me.
I think all Dominicans have a high caffeine intake.
You know, but you know, I did do that one, but that's about it. You know, DNA tests are ethnicity estimates. Right, but they can connect you with cousins and stuff like that, and that's always interesting to find out.
Have you connected with any family members as a result of your research?
Yes, I most certainly did. You know, I had mentioned before that my grandmother never spoke about her life in DR ever. You know, it's not something that we spoke about. And after doing research, and I found out, you know, I was able to identify my great grandmother. I actually learned that I had this huge Dominican family living in New York, right next to me the whole time. So I reached out to a couple of them, a couple in New York. I reached out to a couple in Santo Domingo. And my cousin in Santo Domingo actually had a father who was a writer, and he wrote about his family history. I was able to learn so much information about my great grandmother that I would have never known if I would have never done the research. So yeah, that was something that was really special for me. It really helped me connect to my Dominican roots.
Wow, that's amazing. Let's see,
Yeah.
because people have questions over here,
Let's
Jasmine.
go.
So Bibi says, her question is, my paternal grandparents came from Antigua. Can she use, I believe that she referring to Familysearch.org.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Try it and see what happens. They're still considered Dominican, no?
Right.
So I would
what
search
about
the Dominican civil records.
Okay. So this was the website, which I believe is familysearch.org. But you also, on your blog, refer people to the CUNY Dominican Studies Institute. And you also mentioned the Proyecto Genealógico de Raíces Quisqueya. Could you talk to us?
I can't pronounce that, but yes, I love that project. So that project is run by Marcos. I can't remember his last name right now, but it's on my blog post. And what he has done is he's been working on this project since 2007, I believe, and he's trying to create a database of families from Dominican Republic or Quisqueya. And I actually found some of my ancestors through his database, and it's available online. Just look up the project, the one that you just said, on Google, and it'll pop up for you. And you can search through his database.
Wow, there's so much information. Let's see. There's someone here. Let me see if we could read the entire. I'm gonna click on this because we can't see the entire thing. But this question is, where do most people start when they are first generation born in the US? Do we have to be in DR to find out about our family history?
No, you do not have to be in DR to find out about your family history. Familysearch does have records from like 2000 for Dominican Republic. It all depends on the year that you're looking for. And if it's fairly recent ancestry that you have, then I would recommend looking at the civil registration collection that they have on Familysearch.
On familysearch.org.
Yes.
And again, everyone, this is a free website.
Free. Everything about it is free.
This person is asking, is there a limit on years that you can research on your ancestry? I think you kind of mentioned that it's only so far back that you could go. Like, you're not going to go into your Taino heritage.
I mean, you might come across some documents that mention, someone of indigenous ancestry.
Okay.
But I think it would be very rare to come across that. I think it depends on how far back you're willing to go and if the information would be accurate.
Got it. Jasmine, people are asking, what's your blog?
I have a website called JasminKateri.com. It's fairly new. It's only been up and running for like a year. I kind of write about what I feel about in the moment, and I do have a section on genealogy that I'm going to contribute a lot more to.
Okay, I'm going to put that here, JasminKateri.com, everybody. Of course, Google autocorrects me.
Always.
So if you visit her blog, she has the post on Dominican Ancestry, and under this post, she's listing all the resources that she has used to commence her research.
Right.
So someone is asking in the comments, can you please write in the chat about the other two projects you mentioned, like the CUNY, I believe you mentioned. So for this person who has this question, if you go to her website, JasminKateri.com, and read her blog, you will see all the resources listed under the blog. It's too many of them for us to list in this chat. So please go visit and show some love to her blog.
Yes, and I also think I have a direct link to that blog post in my bio. So if you go to my Instagram, look at my bio, there should be a link there.
Right. Jasmine, you need a subscription button on your blog.
I do?
Yes. So we can subscribe, and every time you post something, I get a notification.
Okay. I'm going to look into that.
Yes. Add a subscription question because people are interested, you know, and especially if you're a genealogist, people will be interested in getting these updates, you know. So again, everybody, it's Jasmin Kateri. Her name is on the flyer, jasminkateri.com. That is the blog. Okay, and under her blog, you're gonna see all the information. All right. So let's see what other questions we have here. We already provided the blog name. Someone is asking, I am on Ancestry and 23andMe and have tons of matches. The problem I am having is endogamy. Most of my matches, so
Gizzo, endogamous.
Gizzo Zagirl, I don't know how to pronounce your name. This question, will you please type it in the comments because it's not allowing us to see the full length of your question. Alicia is asking, have you been able to find any information on African ancestry? Yes, she mentioned Louisiana.
Yes, African ancestry, for sure. And my family in Santo Domingo comes from a part that is, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Mano Guayabo?
Yeah, Mano Guayabo.
I don't know. Right. So I have a family that is from that particular area, and there's a lot of African and Haitian, you know, descendants living there. So that's where my African ancestry originates. I would like to go as far back as locating where my African ancestors are originally from. Like my DNA ancestry says I'm 35% West African, and my aunt came back 20% Nigerian. So I'm going to assume that they came from Nigeria based on that estimate.
So is that something that you plan on doing, traveling to Nigeria?
I would like to, actually. I'm planning a whole research trip very soon.
Yeah, like, could we join you?
Yeah, let's do it, you know. You know, I would love to go to Santo Domingo, do research there. I would like to go to the Virgin Islands. I would love to do that, just travel and research.
Guys, too many of you are posting your questions in the comment section and I'm losing them. Please use the question mark icon at the bottom of the screen, okay? Because I'm trying to catch up and it's making me scroll through everything. So someone also mentioned endogamy.
Right.
Or endogamy. I don't know how do you pronounce that. She says how
it's like very endogamous. Endogamous, is that the word that we're trying to?
What is that?
I think I don't know. I should know this.
Let's Google that.
I literally just learned about this. I have mommy brain. I'm a mom of 3 boys, so I forget things very easily if I don't write it down. But I think what she may be.
Endogamous is a marriage with a specific group, as required by custom of law.
I'm not sure.
What? That is not clear to me.
So maybe what she's referring to is that she has a lot of cousins that maybe come from different backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
Let me know in the comments if that's right.
Yeah, because endogamy is a form of segregation that helps groups or communities resist integration, like the Jews.
Okay.
That they only marry within themselves.
Okay.
Or merging with other groups or cultures who do not share the same beliefs or resources as they do. This type of practice can help smaller or minority cultures survive over a long period of time.
Okay. Interesting.
Very I had never heard that word. We learned something new here today.
Yes, I think so. I mean, I did hear that word very recently, and I was interested in that term, and it had to do with something called DNA triangulation. So like when you're trying to narrow down your genetic cousins to a specific locality, you do this process called triangulation. So you go and you pick, like, let's say I want to find an unknown ancestor, right? So I'm going to go look at all of the genetic cousins that are related to each other. And I'm going to find at least 3 of them that I can relate to, that we all have the same CM, I guess they call it, is how they measure your DNA. And then that would be a way to locate an unknown ancestor. I'm not sure if that's what she meant, but that's the term that I heard when referring to that particular process. I'm not familiar with it, but I am trying it out because, like I said, I had a bunch of cousins in Louisiana. I want to know why. So I would refer to DNA triangulation for that process to figure out that unknown ancestor.
Okay. Ismail is asking, did you contact any specific offices in DR directly?
I did not. I did contact the person in charge of the project, the genealogy project for Quisqueya. I did contact him. I told him that I had all this data, all this research that I've done over the years, and I just didn't know what to do with it. And he was the one that kind of helped me organize the information to better understand what it is that I had done, basically the research that I had completed. So I did contact him. There is the AGN, which is the National Archives for the Dominican Republic, and they have a website. I think it's listed in my blog as well. I don't know it off the top of my head. And they have a lot of records online too that you can look up. They have books that you can read in regards to Dominican history and stuff like that. And they do have contact information where you can contact them if you have any questions on particular document retrievals.
Got it. Okay. Let me see. Guys, some of your comments, I'm like scrolling up to make sure I don't miss anyone, but please use the question mark icon at the bottom of the screen. Do documents have information on ancestors who lived in the Dominican Republic but came from countries outside of the DR?
Yes, I've seen them. My husband's side of the family. His ancestors came from the British Virgin Islands before migrating to DR, and there's a section in Familysearch. It's under miscellaneous, and there's records of people that have migrated from different places and then moved to DR. Sometimes you'll even find pictures there. It all depends on the year that they migrated, though. So if it was before the 1900s, I don't think you're going to find a lot of information on that. Probably in the civil records next to the ancestor's name, it'll say where they're from, like which city. Like, for example, it would say natural citizen of Santo Domingo versus natural citizen of Guadalupe, but they live here and stuff like that.
Got it.
If that makes sense. If that didn't make sense, let me know.
This person is asking, what resource have you used for archived newspapers?
Archived newspapers, AGN, the AGN website.
And guys, use Google, AGN, just Google it.
AGN for Dominican Republic, because you can have an AGN for other countries.
Yes, thank you.
AGN,
Commander-in-Chief, thank you so much for sharing that that link. Glendalise wants to know, how far back were you able to research your ancestry?
I went back 7 generations.
Wow, Jasmine.
Yeah.
Are you writing a book?
I can't say. I can't say right now.
No comment, okay. But wow, 7 generations. That is amazing.
Yeah, that was something I never thought was possible.
So I'm pretty sure that when you started on this, you were like, oh, I probably get far back as my great-grandmother or something, but not as far as 7 generations.
That was my goal, you know, because like I said, I really was really motivated after the death of my grandmother, and I was trying so hard to hold on to her, you know, and I just wanted to know if anyone else knew her in this world. And I just, you know, that's how it started. And it just turned, it just kept going and going. And so many people
did you find something, did you find anything out that really impressed you about your family?
I would have to say that kind of like scratches my head a little bit is my grandmother's mother was mixed. One side is, you know, comes from African ancestry, you know, and they have enslaved ancestors on that side, and then the other side is fairly rich and white. And I'm kind of like, you know, I thought it was a little weird that, you know, these two people would come together like that when they come from two completely different worlds. So that's always interesting to see. You don't see that a lot.
Have you read the book Homecoming?
I have not.
Okay, I'm gonna
I'll
share
write
it
that
with
down.
you because it's fictional, but it touches on what you just mentioned.
Okay.
On the white side and the answer and the, you know, the African side, and it dates back all the way from slavery, but it's super interesting.
Yeah.
The way that woman wrote that book, I'm just amazed, and I highly recommend it. That book is amazing.
Who's the author?
I can't pronounce her name. Her, I think is Nagasi. If anyone in the comments can write down the author's name, because I forget what, and it's an African name, so I might mispronounce it as well.
I'm gonna write that down.
So more questions is okay. Johanny, I just asked your question about what was the most interesting thing that she found, and then people want to know, how can I begin my search without my deceased father information or ties to his family?
Okay, where is your deceased father from? Was he born here in the States, or was he born in the Dominican Republic? And what year was he born? Do you at least have that information? Or if you don't have that information, can someone close give it to you?
So we're gonna need the person's correct name.
Correct.
Not the nickname. The correct name and what part of DR they're from.
Right.
And so
you don't want to search for someone's name in the entire country. You really want to narrow it down by locality.
And thanks for the correction on the book title. It is Homegoing, not Homecoming. Thank you.
Going, okay.
It's a wonderful book. So if you have the name of the person and the place they're from in the DR, that should be sufficient. But of course, the more information you have, the better.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Okay. Someone is asking, did you have to research the history of the provinces?
Yes. Yes.
So that was helpful?
Yes, that was helpful, because if there was a particular event like a war, for example, then I know that the records during that time are probably either don't exist or they're really damaged if they're uploaded and digitized. You know, and if there was a flood, for example, in one town, maybe your ancestors moved to the next town over, and then I'd probably want to move my research to the next town over rather than that town that had the flood. You know, so knowing the history of the province is essential in your research for sure.
So Mitchell is asking, is contacting Dominican churches a good tactic or for tracing our ancestors? And how can we start with the Dominican church?
So the Catholic Church records are available on Familysearch. I personally have not contacted any churches for that. There is a extensive record collection on Familysearch, specifically from the Catholic Church records. You'll find baptism records there. You'll find marriage and death certificates there as well. So that's something that you can look into and narrow it down by locality and parish. So, and I always keep referring to Santo Domingo. You have 3 parishes in Santo Domingo. You have San Carlos, you have Santa Maria, and then there's another one that I can't remember off the top of my head, but they're there, and you really just have to narrow it down by locality and parish.
Okay, I have a question for you.
Yes.
What about people, for example, a lot of us have 2 birthdays. And not only that, Dominicans, and maybe this is a Caribbean thing, we have a history of registering births late.
Yes. Thank you for saying that, because that's what I've noticed in a lot of my research.
In the DR.
Yes,
in
DR, yes, in a lot of the research. Right? So I've seen someone register their birthday 20 years after they were born, you know?
What?
So, yes. Yes, and
20.
that's common. In like the 1950s, they were born in the
Like, what
20s.
made that person decide, ay, yo no tengo un certificado de nacimiento, déjame registrarme?
I honestly don't know, but it happens, and it happens quite often. So you could be looking in a specific time period and you might not find it because, you know, like Angie said, it could be filed late and in a different time period, maybe 10 to 20 years later than the person was actually born. So it would be good to give yourself like okay, let's say your grandmother was born in 1930. Give yourself a time frame of where and which records you'd like to look up. Do you want to, you should probably look up maybe 1930 to 1950, you know, give yourself that bracket, that window to search.
Oh my God. Also, they're asking, when you say locality, what office in the town do you go to?
What office in the town? I have never been to the office or town. All of the research that I have done has been digital through Familysearch. I would contact the AGN at that point because they would have more information on that.
Got it. So I'm on familysearch.org right now, and I put in my birthday and my name, and then it's asking for church record number.
Really?
I have no idea.
Is that an
what
account
a church
that you're
record
creating?
number is. It's a new account that I'm creating.
That's interesting. I didn't come across that when I created mine.
So it says how to find your, you know, it's supposed to help you find it, but I'm like, what does this mean? What is a church record? I don't belong to a church. I don't even remember the last time I was in a church, but that's strange. So yeah, so I guess you skip that. So you click on, I don't know what my church number is. I don't know if they assign you one. And then you choose a username and password.
Mm-hmm.
Enter your mobile, whatever, set your location if you want to receive information from Familysearch, and then the account is created.
Yes. It should be simple.
So let's see here. Did you try to obtain records from family members like pictures, certificates, etc.?
Yes.
Did anybody say, ¿qué es lo que tú estás entremetida buscando? ¿Qué es lo que tú buscas? Did anyone resist you? Because you know how older
exactly like
are,
that.
Like,
yeah,
you don't need all that. For what?
Sometimes, yes. But I did have a lot of family members that were willing to share whatever information they had to help me too. So there were some that just, you know, weren't really
follow
interested.
Up with you and ask you how far did you get? Like, did you share that information with family?
I did share that information with some of my family members that were interested in knowing, you know, and then if, you know, some of my other family members are interested in knowing too, I would gladly share that with them as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Johanny is asking, what was one thing you found that you kind of knew or suspected and confirmed it with the research?
There was always this this story, like this oral history that my great grandmother was a twin or a triplet. Like no one could really pinpoint it. Like, was she a triplet or was she a twin? When I found her actual birth record, I found out she was actually a twin, and the third sister that they always referred to a triplet was born like a year after. So I'm assuming that they probably all looked alike, and since they were close in age, that's why they all thought they were triplets. So I would have to say that that was something that I confirmed through research. Yeah.
Joe is asking, that you find out if you were related to any important people, political or influential?
Yeah, I could say yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think some people might find that, you know, as they go through their ancestry, that, you know, they might be related to somebody, some politician way back when.
So La Reina, if we don't know their original location, would the place they grew up in help? Like if I don't know where my grandfather was born, but I know that he resided in this place the entirety of his life, does that help?
In the country, or you don't know?
In the DR, I suppose.
Yeah, that's fine, you know. you can always look up your ancestor by country and see what comes up. You'll see different towns, like might show up for Santiago or Santo Domingo or other places like that, but you can always narrow it down using that that DNA triangulation that I spoke about before. Kind of see the pattern in the surnames and see where your genetic cousins all kind of come from and narrow it down by locality.
Got it. Ismael is asking, did you encounter any name changes, like De La Cruz becoming Cruz?
Yes. I've seen De La Cruz as a middle name and not used as a surname. I've seen, you know, a lot of people changing their maternal last name, like illegitimate children. I hate that term. Changing over their maternal to their paternal last name as time goes on. I've seen surnames that have been spelled how they sound phonetically. So, for example, I'm going to use the surname Sunkar. I have seen the surname Sunkar spelled Juncar with a J and an L. I have seen it spelled with a Y and an R. And it's all the same family, but just how it sounds phonetically, you'll get different spelling variations. And that's an important point to make, that our ancestors were not concerned with spelling. So
no, absolutely not.
If you're stressed out about the spelling of a surname or the changes of a surname, don't be.
Yeah, just try the Dominican way of writing that name. Don't write it correctly. Try the Dominican way.
Exactly.
Of writing it. So Michelle or Mitchell is asking, do people living in rural DR, like Monte Adentro and El Cibao, have records as well? I'm sure there's a disparity there.
I'm sure probably the amount of records available might be different than the amount that is probably in the closest city to it. I know that sometimes people in rural areas would travel to cities to get their documents recorded or their civil records done and stuff like that. So if you're having a hard time looking in the rural areas, try to look in the city that's closest to it.
Got it. Let's see. How has your research impacted how you see yourself and the world?
I love that question. It has greatly impacted both of those things. Before the research, I didn't really have a connection with my Dominican roots. You know, my husband, we've been married almost 12 years. Oh, I'm sorry, 10 years. We've been together almost 12. He is pure Dominican. His parents were both born there. So I really connected with my roots through that, but never through my own family lineage. You know, we just weren't that close growing up. So learning the names of my ancestors has definitely been a spiritual experience for me. To be able to put a name to who they are is something that's special, and to be able to share that with my children when they grow up is priceless.
Yeah, I mean, now you could tell your children where they really come from, 7 generations deep.
Yeah.
Did you find out something you now regret knowing?
I think, you know what, there's good and bad in every family. You know, I think everyone can agree to that. You might find something that you wish you didn't see. It makes you kind of sick to your stomach, you know, but there's good and bad in every family, and you know, you kind of have to come to terms with it.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think we're going to need a workshop for that.
Oh, yeah.
Organizing your research. How do you organize everything that you're finding, right? Like,
yeah,
how do you do that? Do you have a whole wall dedicated to this?
I don't. I have worksheets. No, I have actual worksheets. I don't know why I didn't bring it with me just now. You can find them on Amazon. Look up genealogy worksheets. And
so you don't have your own worksheets that we could download from your website?
I could look into making something up. Yeah, I can look into that. That's a good
suggestion. Like create your own worksheets, girl.
Yeah. That's a really good suggestion. But yes, or always Go ahead.
We want to know what helped you as a fellow Dominican, and like, right?
Okay.
Like, how do we start? Like, if you could create an ebook with the process, no te lleves de mí, porque yo siempre estoy dando ideas, pero sí, llévate de mí. Like, if you could create an ebook on how to go about registering, I mean, doing all this with the resources that people could download from your website, along with worksheets, like a little packet, I think that would be wonderful.
It would be great. And you know what?
Yeah.
There are a couple of genealogists that have dedicated some time to that too. You know,
Okay.
I wish I knew their names off the top of my head, but maybe I'll make a blog post about them.
Yes, please.
share
Because
it
I
with
know
you guys.
people may be interested in getting to know who else is doing this work.
Yes.
Another question is, were there records lost during the Trujillo era, especially the more Afro-Black Haitian descendant Dominicans?
Yes, I would say yes. There is in Santo Domingo from the late 1920s, and I know that he was in power from 1930 to 1960, but from the late 1920s to around the mid 1940s, there is a chunk of records that are missing, and they've been missing for quite a while. I'm not sure if that's a direct result from his dictatorship, but I can assume that something happened during that time that those records are just not available.
Anything is possible on the Trujillo.
Yeah. Yes.
Another question is, has your research changed any of your family relationships or created relationships that weren't there before?
Changed my family relationships? I would have to say it made some of my the family that I already knew and loved made us closer. You know, I was able to find a picture of the woman that raised my grandmother and gave it to my aunt who's named after her. And she said that was the best gift I could have ever given her, you know? So that definitely made us closer. And yeah, I think I mentioned before, I connected with a couple of my cousins that live in Santo Domingo, that live in New York and Florida and stuff like that. So definitely benefited from that.
Could anyone use, like, could just anyone use Familysearch? Like, if someone is in DR and has never left the country and doesn't speak English, are they able to use the website?
Absolutely.
Does it translate to Spanish or?
Yes, yes, it does. Absolutely.
Oh, wow. I'm about to put my sister, like, go find out. I'm creating an account. I'm about to tell my sister, who's never left the island, to create an account as well.
Yeah.
Let's see. Someone asked about contacting churches, if this is a good tactic. So Jasmin, you already mentioned that, you know, you could do that through Familysearch, correct?
Right. You can look at the church records depending on the time period. You know, you can do that. I've never contacted the churches. I haven't gotten to that part in that research. Again, I would refer back to AGN because they're a really good resource on how to get certain types of records or to retrieve them.
Got it. Glenda Lisa is saying, I was able to find the great grandparents from 1700s. Any tips for when you hit a wall?
Oh, brick walls. that brick wall ancestors, those are my favorite. Basically means that you can't find any more information on that particular ancestor, and that momentum you had in building your family tree just kind of stops, right? So things that have worked for me in the Dominican records was during that time period, I noticed a pattern in a lot of different family trees. I think I wrote it down somewhere, and it's like a naming pattern. So so basically, the firstborn son would be named after the father's father, and then the secondborn son would be named after the mother's father, and then the firstborn daughter would be named after the mother's mother or the father's mother, and stuff like that. And I noticed this pattern along a lot of different families. So when I felt like I hit a brick wall, I would just, you know, take a wing at it and just be like, okay, I'm noticing this pattern. Maybe this brick wall ancestor's father's name is the name of his son, right? And then I would look it up that way because of that pattern that I've seen.
Yeah. So pay attention to patterns, guys. If you notice
Yes.
anything, pay attention to that because it might be helpful.
And the spelling variations as well. That has helped me get through brick walls. We spoke about that a little bit earlier about spelling out the surnames how it sounds phonetically rather than spelling it correctly all the time. And another thing that I noticed too is that some ancestors around that period would sign with their last name first and then their first name as their last name. So that might be something else to look into because I've seen that a couple of times as well.
Okay. Yeah. So this person is asking, where can we find records on Dominican immigration from Spain or Portugal to DR?
Try the miscellaneous records collection on Familysearch. You can find immigration records there.
Guys, so basically Familysearch is your go-to. Just
yes,
go
yes,
on
that's
there.
Familysearch is my best friend. It should be everybody's best friend that's starting out, you know, because
yeah, just
everything
go
about
on the
it is free.
Go on the website, create an account, and click on everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you figure you find out what's helpful. Sarah is asking, is there a specific timeline where these patterns show up with the names?
Yes, around the 18th and 19th century. I don't see it that much in the 20th century.
Okay. So BB is asking, does the Dominican consulate help?
Say that again?
El consulado.
No, there's one in New York. Yes, yes, that's how I have some of my grandmother's records.
The New York one?
Yes.
But you never dealt with the one in the DR?
No.
Okay, but they might.
I never really needed to. Not yet. I'm sure when I further my research, when I go to DR, like I'll be visiting these places for sure, but I haven't been on the island yet to have that experience.
Okay.
I don't see why you couldn't though. If you have the contact information, I just say go for it, you know, contact them and see what they can do for you.
Okay. All right. I think we've asked all the questions, which was, you know, a lot.
Yeah.
Any more questions, guys? We're going to save this live so you'll be able to go back to it in our IGTV and watch it at your own pace and stop it whenever you need to gather information. But the gist of this all is that familysearch.org is your go-to.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
That is your go-to. Please visit Jasmin's blog, which is jasminkateri.com. The name is on the flyer that's on the IG Live at the moment. And follow her on Instagram as well, because she does post information from time to time on genealogy. Another question that we have is, can you get the record for grandparent or great-grandparent records?
Yes.
This person came in late.
Yes, and that's okay. But the answer is yes, it's possible.
So guys, Familysearch is for your entire family. It is your primos, your siblings, your grandparents, your great-grandparents. Jasmin went as far back as 7 generations. So eso fue tatarabuelo, tatarabuelo, tatarabuelo.
Right, but I don't want anyone to think that they can do this overnight, because it didn't happen overnight. It took a very long time, and it was time consuming because you're searching through records page by page, and it's all online, and it's hard to read some of these handwritten records. So just take your time, don't rush it. You know, if you come across one source, make sure you have another one to match it so you can confirm it. So if I have a birth record, I want a death record or a marriage record, right, with the same information, so I can say for sure I have enough proof to say that this is my ancestor, you know, because people can have the same names and you can make mistakes, and it happens, and that's okay too. Take your time, take it slow, and be mindful when I feel compelled to say this right now, be mindful when you're talking to your elders and you're bringing up things of the past. You know, I always say people are healing from things that they don't speak of. And that goes for our elders too. And if you know the history of Dominican Republic, then you know exactly what I'm speaking about. So just be mindful of your approach. Let them know your intention, that you just want to look up your family lineage, and if they want to talk about your family history, then allow them to do that and be thankful for that, but don't try to force it out of anyone.
Right. We also want to let you guys know this IG Live is about researching your Dominican history and ancestry, but Familysearch is not only for Dominicans. If you're from Cuba, if you're from Venezuela, whatever country you're from, you start your research on familysearch.org.
And that's what makes Dominican ancestry so special, is that the trunk of your tree is going to be on the island, but your roots are going to be all over the place.
Right. So if you're Cuban, you could still go on familysearch.com, because Familysearch, as Jasmine mentioned before, pulls records from all over the world. Right?
It's the world's family tree.
Let me see. Which city is the hardest to find info on in Santo Domingo or Santiago?
Santo Domingo. What do they mean by that? Like which city?
Yeah, I mean, you're not researching cities, you're researching people and family.
Right.
So I guess she means, where is it the hardest to find information on people? I guess that's what she means.
The hardest to find information on people. I guess it would just depend on the time period, really, and the locality and the history on that locality. So whether or not the record exists, you know. I found Santo Domingo to be the easiest one to search, to be honest. Santiago, I haven't done too much research on. And yeah, I'm not really sure how to answer that one.
So when you go in Familysearch, are you searching by locality as well? Like, do you pick?
Well, there's two different ways that you can search. And the easiest way is to type in the name of your deceased ancestor and where they live. So type in their name, put in Dominican Republic, and see what comes up. And hopefully someone has come across that record before. You know, there's a lot of volunteers that index the records, and hopefully that record is indexed to make it easier to find. Some of my ancestors have already been indexed, and it was very easy to find, but most of them weren't. So then you would have to go and search by record collection. And then you would type in, you know, Dominican Republic, and all of the record collections would pop up. And then that's when you begin to narrow it down by locality. So if I want to look up records in Bani, for example, I need to know that Bani is in the province of Peravia. So I need to look there and then begin to break it down that way.
So the more information you have about that province will help you. Will be helpful.
Exactly.
Okay. BB is asking, do you also prepare searches for how to contact and how to prepare emotional upsets? What do you mean by that, BB? I'm not sure I know what you mean by that. Put it in the comments, BB.
I can't see the comments here.
Okay. I'll be able to see it. We don't get it. So I have a question, Jasmine. Would you be willing to do a workshop with us?
Absolutely. I would love to do something like that.
Where we could gather a bunch of us and you could teach us everything from creating the Familysearch website to how to use the website and what are the best, you know, the tips and tricks on how to begin that research. Would you be interested in doing that for us?
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
I would love that.
Great. And I asked that because next month we start our Dominican History Book Club. We're trying to teach everyone in our platform about our Dominican history, mainly because a lot of us that are second and third generation have no idea about our egg. You're joining us.
I signed up and I started reading.
Have no idea about our history, and I'm including myself in that. And I think even as writers, it is super important for us to know where we come from. So, you know, having this workshop with you, I think would be an amazing thing. So I'm gonna reach out to you so that we could plan it out.
Let's do it. That would be awesome.
I think you're gonna have a lot of interested people who want to know, how do we go about starting this?
Yes.
Isn't it? And I'm like, it's an emotional journey. I'm just thinking, dándole mente a mi familia, and I'm like, do I want to go down that route? Right? Because sometimes you might find things that, like, I spend a lot of time on TikTok, and I've been looking at genealogy and Ancestry TikTok, and there's people that there's a TikTok that says, what have you found out from your DNA research that you had no idea about? And there's people like finding half siblings, you know, that they didn't know about, and you know, and family members that they had no, and that's traumatizing.
It is.
Like, it's like, are we ready to go that route? Just let's remind each other that we're Dominicans, and Dominicans are messy. Like, we have hidden families, we have hidden children, we have the Trujillo era, we have slavery. Like, I'll be dead if I find out someone in my family was a slave owner. Like,
it's possible though. It's possible. And that's something that I mentioned earlier, that we have to learn how to accept and deal with, because it's not easy. And it's not easy finding out that your ancestor was enslaved either, because it's very possible to research your enslaved ancestors. It's there in the records, mostly the Catholic records. And you'll read, you know, it'll say Juan Moreno Esclavo adulto, you know, he's getting baptized because his slave owner, you know, the slave owners used to baptize their slaves. And that was something really hard to really digest in the beginning when I started coming across those records. So it's very real, and it's different.
Did you find any pictures
of ancestors? Yes, I did. Yes, and that's my favorite part, is finding pictures. I don't find pictures for everybody, but when I do, I send it to everyone that I know. I'm like, look what I found. This is my great.
That sounds both exciting and nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Let's see. Like, one of my projects this year is that I want to get a group of us to take a DNA test. Like, let me just tell you that I bought the Ancestry one and the 23andMe like 6 months ago, and it's still there unopened. It's like,
why?
It's almost like, am I ready to do this? Do I really want to go that route? I still haven't taken it. It's sitting there unopened. And I'm like, maybe I should get like 5 to 10 people to buy the test and take it with me and make a whole event out of it to see what we find out. Like, I think that's probably what I'm going to do. Like, I'm going to get some people to be traumatized with me. Because misery loves company. Y yo no quiero ser la única finding out, like, shit I really didn't want to know. But Jasmin, thank you so much for being here tonight. This information is so valuable.
Yes, and there's so much more too. It's such a massive topic. And thank you for letting me, you know, use your platform to talk about it. It's not spoken about enough.
Claro, de nada. I will definitely be in touch so we could schedule the workshop.
Yes, amazing.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
So, all right, everybody. I'm going to save this live. If you have any questions, hit up Jasmin, DM us, but be on the lookout for the workshop with Jasmin, okay?
Amazing.
Have a good night, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, Jasmin. Bye.
Bye.